Here we are live. Okay, so here's our weekly quick 20-minute session on all things hypnosis, change work, trying to get yourself where you want to get to, and so much more for both practitioners and clients. And today we want to talk about how to create a successful image and for successful living. And Pete, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, and this is one I say I dealt with a lot. I say yesterday more um, with a lot of my clients. And so we all get stuck in that rut where we get told to think positively, right? And what we normally do is we go, I've been trying and it's just not working out, right? And usually what that finds is on one hand, right, we go, I'm told to think positive and I know it's good for me, right? Because thinking positive is healthy. But on the other hand, it's, well, it's not who I am,
Mm.
right? And so what happens is we're not in balance. We all, one's heavier than the other, one's lighter. And so I think what a lot of people miss is that true appreciation of who we are,
Mm.
you know? And so when we think about it as, I say, a psychological thing, it can't be fake it until you make it. It's about becoming that person, right? We have to really see ourselves as the person we're becoming already in a way of, even if it's monetary success, you've gotten a paycheck if you have a job week after week, right? That is success, right? That you can earn money. So what you do is you take that success to say, how do I make more money? How do I leverage it to make more? But I'm already successful at it. You know, if it's being happy, we all have a moment in our life where we actually experience happiness, right? And letting those moments be who we are versus the pain, the sadness, the frustration, because right now, the way our mind works, and it can usually do one of three things. It can generalize, it can distort, and it can delete, you know? And so what happens is we go, well, I'm never happy. Well, is that true? Is it never? Or are you deleting the good times, right? Or do you go, nobody wants me to be happy. So are you generalizing the entire world for what could be three people? Yeah. Do you distort the information going, well, yeah, I was happy, but then this horrible thing happened afterwards, right? You're distorting the facts to go, well, I couldn't stay there, right? And so we get to look at these things and we get to go, okay, like I'm struggling because I'm trying to think these good, successful thoughts, but I don't feel it in my heart, you know? And it's very rare that I quote like scriptures, but this is one. Um, I know it's in the Bible. I forget where, but it was realistically, I think it was Christ going, we get to be transformed. Um, no, so seeth in our heart we will be, or something like that, or as we are be, right? Meaning we have to feel it first. We can't just go through life going, well, I'm thinking positive. I'm thinking positive. That part is important, but it's not as important as feeling and looking for the successes we've already had, you know, no matter how big or small, you know, because that's what allows us to connect the dots at a deep root level versus just a surface. So that is one where when we think of our real true self image, it's more than just what we think, right? Thinking is great. Having the positive thoughts is great, but we really need to go deep inside to bring it into alignment, right? We have to look at the contradictions, that one that go, like, I want to be successful. I want to have a happy marriage, but maybe about myself, I feel like I can't be good in a relationship, right? I can't be communicative. But with everyone I worked with, at least yesterday and in my career too, they had moments where they were really communicative, right? Where they were like on fire and their partner was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Why can't you be like this all the time? And it's like, well, internally they go, well, I'm not a good communicator, so I can't keep it all the time. But all it takes is that spark, right, to start a great forest fire, right? It takes a spark, right? That one moment, that's as small as it is, can grow, because then we get to go, oh yeah, I communicated then, and I communicated at this time and that time. Oh, I showed how much I love you there, and I showed myself that I have the ability to get promotions, right? I have the ability to earn more money. How do I just use it differently now? Right. And so that, I think we got to think of it as the psychological part, but also whether it's the metaphysical part or spiritual part, because they really have to be combined, right? We have to have, whether it's God, the universal mind, higher power, even our highest self, it has to have those successes well before we can really see it as a consistent thing. I say one that I say more real world example I can think of is Usain Bolt, when he, was the fastest man, 9 seconds, right? He goes, what you didn't see were the 4 years before that, right? 4 years of taking the thoughts of like, I'm going to be the fastest man, running, taking action on it, right? Going, I am this person because I am a fast runner. That's how you get to be the world's fastest man.
I have to say, when you're saying that, it sounds like believe in yourself, in where you want to go, and by validating the times that you have actually had successes, opposed to focusing on all of your failures. It sounds to me like so many people who have gotten themselves to a successful place have continued to focus on where they want to go, what they're doing. And it's very common for us to just see what's bad and to focus on that, and to add in that neuroscience over and over is saying that the brain looks for patterns. So there is a way to start to see the patterns that are working and have been successful, even though in your logical mind you might, and even in reality, you might be able to put more in the category of failure than success. That doesn't diminish the fact that there are patterns within the success, and that the brain is actually wired, supposedly, as they say, to find patterns. And so we have, that's what I'm hearing you say, right? It's like,
right. It's one where, on an internal level, right, we typically say to ourselves, I can't succeed, or I don't want to fail, right? That's usually our thing. I don't want to fail at this, right? I want to be successful, but I don't want to fail, right? One, at a deep internal level, we're ultimately in that moment going, I'm not good enough, right? There's a difference between going, I'm going to be a winner, and I don't want to be a failure. One is really against us going, I'm good, but I can be better. And the other one's going, I'm not good enough. So failure, in my mind, is the more probable outcome, right? When we do something that we feel confident in ourselves, it's really that thought of failing isn't there, right? It's more on the succeeding, comes with that confidence side. But, and what I was talking to people yesterday really was, we typically go, don't think of the number 3, right? We do it in so many different ways of don't think the number 3, right? And all we can do is really begin to focus on that. And like you said, our mind loves patterns. So it goes, oh, don't think about failure. Well, here's times in my life where I failed, right? We go, no, don't think about those. I told you not to do that. But the mind goes, no, I'm looking for those patterns. You said, don't think about failure. These are times that I failed, because if you don't want me to think of those, I have to think of them first. So I know not to think about them. It's a crazy cycle.
It is.
But then when you can go, all I want you to do is focus on the sevens. By just focusing on those times where you felt really good about yourself, successful, confident, positive, safe, secure, you automatically tune out the three, right? You don't have to say, don't focus on the three. You say, focus on the seven. And the mind will do the same exact thing. As it goes, oh, you want me to focus on the seven? Well, here is where I felt that seven. And here's I felt that seven. Here I felt that seven. And it'll be like, yeah, there were all these times. And that really begins to build up that power within inside us to really develop what we need to move in that direction. Now,
and I want to point out, go ahead.
No, you go.
Just there were so many nuggets that you said at the beginning, and I only caught one out of like 8, so I'll have to go back in the replay for following weeks. But the one thing I did catch was to have the true appreciation of who we are and becoming that person. And I think you were saying that in regards to something along the lines of not hating where you are and who you are, but appreciating who you are. And then, so do you remember kind of, I'd love to hear more about that.
So when we think about who we are, and I think this is everyone in this entire world, we're not where we want to be, right? And that's a good thing, right? Ultimately, our goals should always be getting better and better and better. So we should never be where we really, truly want to be. However, there's many of us who go, I'm not where I want to be, therefore I'm behind or I'm failing, right? If only this event didn't happen, right? If only I didn't get into that car accident and lose, feeling in my arms, right? If only I didn't go through that divorce. If only my business didn't fail, right? We get stuck into those as if they're bad things, right? But when we can truly appreciate who we are, we can take those bad things, or I don't want to even say they're bad. We deem them as bad. We take those events and we use them to propel us versus as a weight to slow us down. Because when we look at every event in our life, they made us who we are. The most amazing part of us and the parts that we may not really want, but they're there to help us grow. And so we have to really appreciate who we are, knowing that, yes, everything that's happened, it's happened. It's done. But we don't have to let it define us as far as stopping us from growing. If I look at it in my life with everything that's happened between, me and my parents, right, where our relationship isn't the best in the world. Now I can use that and I can go, you know what, man, that's going to mean I'm going to be a horrible father one day because I'm not going to know how to be there for my daughter. I don't know what I'm going to do, right? And maybe that stops me from ever having kids. Or I take that and go, you know what? Yeah, my parents, it's not a great relationship, but they taught me a lot of lessons, right? They taught me what I needed and who I need to be for my daughter.
Or I learned it from this experience.
Or I learned it from this experience.
I think some people might not feel like they were taught anything.
Yeah.
but you can certainly learn much from it for your own.
Yeah, right. And every situation in our life, we have learned a lesson, right? The good and the bad. Sometimes we know what not to do. Sometimes we learn what to do, but we always learn something. And I took that information that I learned from them, and it's I love them dearly. They're my parents. I will be with them and for them at the drop of a dime if they ever needed me. But I get to take that information and go, how do I make 2.0, right? Parent 2.0 to be better. That's what I took from that situation. And this is where you get to see people who grow up in similar communities where some people settle in there. And other people go, I'm going to make something out of my life, and they move out of it. They chose not to live in that pain. They accept it, right? They appreciate maybe their mom worked 3 jobs and they had to learn to be self-sufficient by 10, right? And they went, I'm going to use those skills to be a fire under me to propel me.
Right.
Where you get someone else, my parents work or my mom worked 3 jobs. I had to take care of myself. Now that I'm an adult, I'm going to have someone else take care of me.
Right. So a lot of it is, obviously we have a lot of choices pretty much every day. We have infinite amounts of choices for our own lives. And, sometimes, we're in situations where we don't feel that way. We don't feel like we really have choices, or we feel like the choices we've made have been in a way that we don't feel comfortable that our discernment is correct, or that the energy is correct in our lives, or maybe it's a bad karma, or bad luck, right? So if you're in a situation like that, um, what are some of your suggestions for people?
Yeah, I say the first step has always been going back to knowing who you're working on becoming, right? And
Yeah.
you get to take those events. I'm a firm believer in the law of polarity, where every situation we encounter in life is neither good nor bad. It just is. And what we need to do is when we know who we are becoming and a situation happens, we have to look at that situation and go, how will this help me become who I'm becoming? You're giving it that meaning of something good to push you forward. Because otherwise, what happens is, and this is one where they've done lots of tests on this in psychology, where they had children who went through some severe trauma, right? Severe, where in everyday society, people were like, oh my God, like, how are you still alive? Trauma. But the thing is, they didn't know it was trauma until someone told them. And then all of a sudden, their entire world collapsed, right? Because now they're traumatized, where before they were like, no, I'm successful. I have a good life. I went to college. I have a good career. And someone went, no, you going through that event, that's trauma. And then they went, oh my goodness. And they slid backwards, because the truth is events, when they happen, they just happen. We give them meaning, but if we don't give it meaning, somebody else will. Because very rarely, if ever, can we just have an event in our life and just say it just is. It's not good or bad, right? It's always going to lean one way or the other. If one, we don't choose it, other people will, right? So we'll think of birthdays, right? Birthdays are supposed to be these amazing things, but there are people out there who hate birthdays. It reminds them of maybe a parent passing or a loss of a loved one, or the fact that they're getting older and they just learn to hate it, right?
Right.
So all these people are like, no, this is good. And they're like, no, it's bad, right? Their ability to choose if it's good or bad will overpower everyone else. But for a child who has no idea if a birthday is good or bad, and you make it the most amazing day ever, right? You're going, this is the best day. They will go, yeah, it is. Like, this is the best day. That is you giving them the reasons of this is a good day, not a bad day, right? You see it when they fall down. They look at you to go, should I cry?
Yeah,
They're
I've
looking,
noticed that a lot.
right? They're looking for you to give this event a meaning.
Right.
But if you give it a good meaning, they dust their legs off, they get up, and they're like, oh, and they go and play again. But if you go, right, they go, oh my goodness, this must be a bad meaning. The tears will start to flow.
Right. Which I think is, something really interesting to also think about, which is like, um, yesterday too, I was listening to about the mind, and they were talking about actually the brain of a baby is one of the most powerful moments of the brain ever. And I think we think of babies and we see them not being able to do stuff yet. But this is the other side of no, this brain is actually has the capacity to hear and understand every single tone that the languages around the world create. And then when it hears the language that continues in their culture, they start to formulate it. And when you hear them making sounds, ga, ga, goo, goo, this, they're practicing the words that the brain is in just its most amazing state as a baby. And I just thought that was so incredible. And and what I'm getting to is, as we develop by our parents going, oh, or this is good or this is bad, it's creating our experience. And although we can't change our brain, we can change our focus. And by changing our focus, that can help with our thoughts and feelings. And it's been shown scientifically that our thoughts and feelings create the chemicals in our brain. And so I heard someone mention the brain is the chemist, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
I thought that they said, I can't remember what they said. The blood, I think, is I can't quite remember, but that the brain is the chemist. But, when for people who are more science focused, or sometimes think that this stuff has a tinge of like, spirituality that they're not into, or something that they kind of poo poo, it's like science has shown dopamine and all kinds of chemicals I can't rename at the moment, that they come, that they can be created and disintegrated by our thoughts and feelings and emotions. And so these things are combined, right?
Yeah.
And so as we're into our 20 minutes, let's wrap it up and just kind of just summarize what we were talking about today, which is to how to create your successful self-image. And I'll give my few summarizing points, and then Pete, I'd love for you to too.
Yes.
So, how to create your successful image. First and foremost, you have to have a true appreciation of who you are and of what you are becoming. So what I hear in that is, don't hate yourself, don't hate your experiences, because even the parts that we don't want are there for us to grow. And so by appreciating and loving ourselves where we are, and knowing where we want to go, is part of the path. And knowing who you are working on becoming, as I had mentioned. And, a good question that Pete brought up was, how will this help me become who I am becoming? So if you're working on an event, or there's a situation that's hurtful or painful, you might want to ask yourself this question. And the last piece that I have written down is, if we don't give the events meaning, someone else will. And what I hear in this is that we have the power to give these events meaning, opposed to just that it happened to me and someone else is telling you what it was. So it's obviously not just like that easy if you're in a really hard place, but it is just like that as well if you just do it. So that's my little summary. How about you, Pete?
I love your summary. That's exactly what I was saying. I'm going to add one little piece that I have just found super helpful. That is, I think all of us are really good friends, right? We're kind, we're loving, we're compassionate, we're forgiving to so many other people. But sometimes to ourselves, we're not as kind and loving, compassionate, and forgiving. And so I think everything you said spot on is perfect. And adding to it, when you're on this journey, be kind, loving, forgiving, compassionate to yourself with everything that you do and happens around you, right? Be that good friend you are to everyone else, to yourself.
Love that. That is really, really important. And, I'm sure it makes sense to everyone. And yet you could see in your life how often you don't treat yourself like a good friend the way you treat others. So I think that's really a great focus. So thank you so much again for coming, and for the viewers that showed up, thank you. You're always welcome to contact Pete or myself, or comment on any of the pages that this is on, or DM us if you have questions, things you want to talk about. If you're a practitioner and would like to be on with us, we would love to start opening that up with other practitioners to continue the dialogue. And until then, thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, Pete. All right.
Bye.